Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, I'm going to show you plants that would work well as container plants during the Christmas season. I'm going to go from the most cold hardy thing I have, this Dwarf Alberta spruce, to the least cold hardy items I have, and just give you some examples of upright, narrow things that you can decorate in a container, and then some lower growing things that are just round balls that have great foliage. By no means is this all the things that you can grow in containers during the winter time. The thing that we have to keep in mind though when we're container planting shrubs and trees for the winter is you lose at least one horticultural zone, maybe even two, by having them above ground and exposed to freezing and thawing. So we have to keep that in mind. As an example, this curly leaf ligustrum next to me, I'm in zone 7. This is a zone 7 to 10 plant. It would not be a good idea in zone 7 to have this in a container above the ground. In zone 7, I need to think about a shrub that's hardy in zone 6, or even better, all the way up to zone 5. If it's a zone 5 plant, I can almost certainly put it in a container, put it on my front porch, and just water it occasionally and not worry about it dying during the winter time. A zone 6 plant, maybe during the peak of the winter, could be damaged. A zone 7 plant would almost certainly take damage for me in zone 7 above the ground in a container. So keep that in mind. So I'm just going to walk through the items I happen to have at the garden center right now as great examples of things you can use in containers during this Christmas season. This is a very common shrub or even a small tree in the northern part of the country. It's a Dwarf Alberta spruce. They're sold here in my area in zone 7B, but they really don't perform all that well. We tend to have issues with these, but they would make great container plants in the winter time for us. This is a plant that will actually grow in zones 2 to 7, probably even in zone 8 in areas like California that don't get extremely hot in the afternoon. But this would make a great container plant for most people during the winter. It's easily decorated. It's shaped absolutely perfect. You could probably leave it in a container even in the upper parts of zone 5 or 4B. And that's certainly the most cold hardy thing I have. Other things like blue spruces just don't do well in my area, so I don't have them here, but there are lots of other conifers that are as cold hardy as this Dwarf Alberta spruce that would make great container plants in the winter for those of you in zone 5. This De Groot's arborvitae here is one of the more cold hardy arborvitae. It's actually for zone 3 down to zone 8. So certainly somebody in 5 could get away with this one. And I've had 2 over here in front of my door on the shop for a couple years, and they've done fantastic. I've actually been closed in the winter and haven't even watered them well. So they've done quite well in a container. That would be a good choice. That's a De Groot's arborvitae. This group of plants right here is for zone 4 to 8. This emerald arborvitae would make an absolutely fantastic container plant in zone 6, 7, or 8. Same thing with this gold mop cypress here. It's not going to be something you can put lights on or decorate, but it looks great in a container during the winter with that yellow foliage. This is a blue point juniper, not a great example of one. It's a little bit thin, but if you can find one of these, super cold hardy in a container, probably even in zone 5, would make it through the winter. And pretty much any juniper. Junipers are your friend for container planting. They are extremely cold hardy, but that thing has a perfect shape all on its own. Any container you put it in would stunt it, so it could probably stay in there for several years without being a problem for you. This next group of shrubs right here are all for zones 5 to 9. So in a container, maybe 6B down to 9 or even 10A. This is a baby Gem Boxwood from the Southern Living Plant Collection. Perfect little shrub for a container, could last years in a container. This is a Rheingold arborvitae. There's a new variety called Fire Chief, which is an improvement on this, has better color, and it's not supposed to splay open as much as Rheingold. In the future, Rheingold can end up splitting open if it gets snow or ice on it during the winter time. Still a beautiful plant. It'll make a great choice in a container. This will get redder and redder, almost a rusty red color during the winter time. The 2 items in the back right here are Cryptomeria. This is a Globosonana Cryptomeria. Grows as just a perfect little round ball. Sell tons and tons of this plant. Would make a great container plant in 6B down to 9. This is a Black Dragon Cryptomeria. And this one right here, I've had in a container for years. And I've actually limbed it up from the base right here and just created this really funky shape out of it. A great container plant. It's been in that container right there for a couple years, just on display here as what you can do with one of these Black Dragon Cryptomerias. But you can find these pretty readily. Great shrub, great container plant for Christmas time, zone 6B down to maybe 9B. These next items are for zone 6 to 9 typically, so these are going to be things for zone 7 and up in the containers. This Japanese plum yew makes a great container plant, and it can actually be shaped any way you want to shape it. This one has just not been pruned on, but it can actually be shaped into a small Christmas tree. And frequently you can find yews that have been pruned as Christmas trees during the Christmas season. They're not super cold hardy, so like I say, zone 7B or further south probably on that plant. This is a Steed's holly, which has also not been Christmas tree formed, but frequently you can find these during Christmas. It's like a sky pencil holly, like that, but it's a little bit wider at the base, grows more of a Christmas tree shape. It's a great plant, great screening plant if you have a narrow spot as well, but also a great container plant in, let's say, zone 7B down to 9, maybe even 10A. Could stay in a container for years and just be sheared as a small Christmas tree. This curly leaf ligustrum here is very interesting. It would look great with lights or ornaments or something on it at Christmas time. Again, in a container, probably 7B down to 10, maybe even 8A in the worst of the winter. May need some protection in 7B in the worst of the winter if that pot was going to freeze solid. And this is an absolutely stunning choice right here. This is an Oakland Holly. This is just how this thing grows. You think this thing's been sheared on, and it has been sheared on some to make it this thick in the nursery, but it has this incredible vertical growth habit on it. This is another item from the Southern Living Plant Collection. It's a really beautiful plant. If you can find this, this would make a great container plant during the Christmas season from, let's say, zone 7 down to 10, and then protect it in zone 7A in January when the worst of your winter comes. Put it in the garage or something like that, and then it can go back out and be a container plant the rest of the year. So there you go. That's just a few examples of the shrubs or trees you can use. And the main thing I want you to get out of this video is whatever plant you're picking to go in a Christmas container, just make sure you're subtracting at least one zone through the Christmas season, and then 2 zones if you're planning on leaving it out there through the worst of the winter in January from where you are. So if you find out you're in zone 6, you need something that's zoned for 4 if you're going to keep it out in January. 5 through the Christmas season should be fine, and then you need to protect it during January. I'm going to be using some of these in containers at my house and decorating them as we get closer to Christmas. Not putting Christmas decorations up on November 4th, I think is when I'm shooting this. But I wanted you to see some of the plants that, if you see them available wherever you shop for plants, to maybe pick some of these things up. And they do make nice additions to your porch in the wintertime. Thanks for watching my video, and if it was helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for future videos.